the idea that Archbishop Welby and the Church of England are some bastions of moral clarity is totally for the birds. And that's why I think the Church of England themselves can't pack out their own church halls with attendees, but Katie Hopkins is probably going to do a better job of getting more people to come to their churches than they can.
At number 40, when Katie Hopkins was cancelled by the Church of England.
In summary, it says, the church has deeper pockets than you know. Basically, we have unlimited funds to fight you. The next bit gets more nasty. And it essentially, the summation that I've checked with the barrister, the summation is, the law is not with you. The establishment is not with you. The law's not on your side. Look at all the people who've been locked up recently. That's what it points to. And then this is the bit that's done this to me from the letter. So I said, look, even if you are going to cancel, could you make some payment so that I can refund people? Everybody's tickets, of course, will be refunded, and the booking fees and everything. So, you know, the whole thing is just a loss, and that's fine. You know what? Money and me, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm unburdened every day. But I wanted to make a little fund, so if you'd booked a hotel or you'd booked a train, I would be able to refund that. And I listed out, so, you know, sales damage, future sales damage, customer costs, customer travel costs. And they came back with, for the avoidance of doubt, these purported losses are vague, unsubstantiated and embarrassing. And that's the bit that's really got me.
So, Connor, we saw a different side of Katie there. And I guess for her, it was so shocking, not only that it was the Church of England, but the brutality of the cancellation. And the thing is, Connor, if you're in the mainstream media, Katie Hopkins is now one of these people who doesn't exist. You just pretend Katie Hopkins doesn't walk this earth. And I think that is really upsetting, but also the great thing about the independent media, because she is still a force.
Yes, Katie's a figure that I have yet to personally encounter in the sphere, so I don't know her very well. But I do, from that clip, just feel very bad for her, because what she seems to be trying to do is return the money back to the people who have paid to go and see her in a very fair and transparent fashion. And the Church of England aren't exactly exhibiting Christian charity in this time, and nor have they over the years, because I refuse to take lectures from the Church of England, not just on the grounds that I have theological quibbles with them, but because Archbishop Welby, obviously he's now resigned and will be replaced forthwith, decided to being charitable about the situation, be inactive about a child predator whose presence he was alerted to for about a decade, all the while he was writing forwards to reports from the Church of England about how we can combat transphobic bullying in schools, affirming the very ideology which has confiscated the ability to have families from some of my closest friends. He was also insistent that the church adopt the nonsensical acronym UKMGMR, which was UK Minority Heritage Global Majority Heritage, something incomprehensible like that, as if Chinese people, Jewish people, and sub-Saharan Africans are all some indistinguishable blob that is oppressed by the white English. And he was also lobbying in very political fashion against the government's Rwanda bill. Now, you and I, though we want to tackle illegal migration, were going to criticize the bill, as Robert Jenrick did, immigration minister at the time, for being completely toothless and incapable of actually dealing with the problem. But no. He said the complete opposite, that England itself should be some giant ark for everyone around the world to climb aboard while the tides of poverty rise until the entire island capsizes, it seemed. So the idea that Archbishop Welby and the Church of England are some bastions of moral clarity is totally for the birds. And that's why I think the Church of England themselves can't pack out their own church halls with attendees, but Katie Hopkins is probably going to do a better job of getting more people to come to their churches than they can.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she sells out wherever she goes. But the issue is, Connor, getting venues. And I don't know, I guess after what happened to me last year, I've thought much more about Katie because I did know her. I knew her pretty well during her time in the mainstream media. I was the associate editor of The Sun. She was a columnist at The Sun. I interviewed her a lot. There's an interview of us together on YouTube. I certainly hadn't had my political awakening at that time, but I also never bought into the idea that Katie should be cancelled. And what I find so despicable is that actually when you look at what she was advocating for, Connor, she has been proven completely right. Now, sure, her words can be quite verbose. She is an over-the-top woman in lots of ways. In fact, that's why she's leaned into the idea of comedy, because I think with comedy you can potentially get away with a bit more in terms of offending people. But I do just think, when is the mainstream media going to wake up and realize that people like Katie Hopkins do exist? They are part of society. They have an important voice. Or do you think it just doesn't matter anymore because it's completely irrelevant whether Katie Hopkins is allowed to appear on Question Time or even GB News?
So I came on the scene after Katie's cancellation. That's the only reason for my unfamiliarity with her as a person. I know who she is as a personality from when she used to wind up Holly and Phil Schofield on This Morning Sofa. Yeah, so we've all seen those clips, right? They're humorous stuff. But let's abstract this away from Katie Hopkins and say this about general figures who the mainstream media would not allow on unless to pillory and try to embarrass. I'm thinking, for example, to invoke his name, Tommy Robinson, who is only allowed on the likes of Question Time or on Good Morning Britain with Piers Morgan to be shouted down and shunned. Now, bear in mind, I think Tommy himself would admit that he hasn't always been the most prudent actor, publicly or privately. And we won't say anything about the film, which has been ruled libelous and now landed him in pretty bad prison conditions, which I don't think are very fitting for a civil case, but there you go. It does seem to me that these people, no matter how imprudent their conduct, have said things that you, I, Douglas Murray have been saying, just perhaps with a bit more measure or in ways which are a bit more palatable to those who gatekeep the mainstream media. Though maybe not you or I, because we're not always on these channels these days. And I do think you end up having to either catch up with the public mood, who are becoming more sympathetic to these figures, particularly as they see their cancellations as being unjust, or you render yourself irrelevant over time, or in a weird way, you're almost reliant on very draconian governments enacting very totalitarian speech laws to try and shut down independent media so that your narrow space as a mainstream channel, but not too fringe that the government doesn't hate you, still exists. And I think that's a very precarious space to occupy. I think instead of trying to make boogeymen out of people like Robinson or Hopkins, or even as we saw this past weekend, depending on when this goes out, me, I think that you should instead listen to people who have been a bit more Cassandra on certain issues and wonder why you didn't quite get it, rather than just denouncing them on behalf of people that will never like you in the first place.
Totally agree. And what I think is the big difference between us, and by us I mean the whole alternative community that sits either on the centre right or the conservative space. I mean, Ben Habib describes it as nation, or describes people like us as nationists. However you want to describe this group of people, we are very, very different to those who sit in the same space on the left, because none of us are saying that Diane Abbott, Owen Jones, Ash Sarkar, Rebecca Long Bailey should be expunged from society, that we should never hear their views, that they should never be allowed to appear on the media. But as you rightly point out, that's exactly what they have done with the likes of Katie Hopkins and Tommy Robinson. So I think that is a key difference. But look, let's move on in the countdown to number 39, where Jeremy Vine, the new high heel wearing BBC presenter, made a surprising bisexual revelation on his Channel 5 chat show.
And of course, well, you are left-handed. I noticed when you were doing your drawing.
I'm is it bisexual? What is it?
I don't know if you're bisexual. Well, you could be. I don't know, Jeremy. Ambidextrous.
No, but it's not. I can't use both hands for everything.
Right.
I write left-handed, but I would play table tennis right-handed.
Okay.
I think that might be bidextrous.
Bidextrous.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really boring, actually.
Is it? No. Well,
it's not the same as bisexual.
No, it's not.
Connor Tomlinson. What do you make of Jeremy Vine's, I don't really know how to describe it. I was going to say coming out, but he has said that actually that was a mistake. He didn't mean to say he's bisexual, but he certainly has been prancing around the BBC offices a lot in high heels. Do you embrace him, sort of exploring his sexuality publicly like this? His feminine side?
I wouldn't embrace him, Dan, because that's certainly not my sexuality. Look, I think that mediocre self-styled celebrities coming out of the closet and denoting themselves as various forms of sexual and gender minorities. I'm thinking of David Walliams saying that he's non-binary, or Demi Lovato, or Talisa saying that she's demisexual, which for those who aren't well versed in Tumblr gender speak means that she only has intimate relationships with people she has a deep emotional connection with. So she's a woman. I think we are far past the age where this is even interesting nor relevant. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the press tour for Wicked, but these two very vapid women, Ariana Grande, who doesn't look very well, sadly, and this other one who plays Elphaba, it's
Cynthia,
screaming levels of parody of how obsessed they are with gender and race. And I think as for Jeremy Vine, I mean, whatever assembly line that they plucked him off of, where presumably Matthew Wright comes from, I think he's just doing this to add some spice to his life, because in the age of identity politics of the woke variety, straight white men are figures of hate. And so if you are basically the platonic form of a cyclist, you need to pepper in at least one of the identities of the intersectional totem pole to keep your job. So if you mix it up with the gender stuff a little bit and maybe allude to the fact that you've had a intimate experience with another fella during your uni days, then you might keep your spot on the BBC and Channel 5.
Totally. I completely agree. I think that's what it's about. Being a straight white man makes you incredibly vulnerable at the BBC. Put some high heels on, all of a sudden you're a little bit safe. I have to say, that was one of my biggest disappointments of the year, though, seeing the Wicked press tour with Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, because the movie is brilliant. I know you'll have to take my word for that, Connor, but it's not woke, and it's like a proper classic. It really is like the glory days of cinema. And Wizard of Oz is one of my favorite movies of all time, you won't be surprised to know. So I was so disappointed, because I'm like, they should have just kept their mouths shut. This is a press tour which has actually just turned off half the population. But look, let's move on. Speaking of turning off half the population, or maybe more, at number 38, Boots decided to sign up the woman who described the Buckingham Palace balcony as terribly white to front their Christmas ad. But first, you know how often I talk about the need for free speech to be protected, but I've been increasingly thinking of the need for personal protection from snoopers, bad actors, and hackers online. And I'm delighted to tell you I've now found the fail-safe solution. But what's more, this VPN, or virtual private network to use the full term, is also a life changer when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world, wherever you are. So let me introduce you to Surfshark, an incredible and easy-to-use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activity stays safe so you can shop, stream, browse, and conduct your banking online in complete privacy. But the benefits of Surfshark go way beyond keeping you safe online. It allows you to access your favorite entertainment and news shows and channels, including to streaming services like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, and Peacock. Or if your favorite show is blocked on one of your existing services, like Survivor, for me here in the UK on Netflix, but it could also be on Amazon Prime or Disney Plus, within seconds you can be watching as if you're in another country. If you're traveling for work or on holiday, you can also get all your favorite content from home, including sports. And also, this is an insurance policy against creeping censorship in many countries. For example, France has blocked Rumble for many months now. No issues if you've got Surfshark. You can watch anything, anytime, anywhere. It is true freedom. A VPN can save you money too, because you can get the best deals from websites that change their prices depending on where you're buying them from. And there are other benefits too. You can use Surfshark on unlimited devices. As you can see, I've got a few here on my computer, or your entire family can stay safe with just one subscription. And with over 3,200 servers in 100 countries, there is a world of choice at your fingertips. And if this is your first time using a VPN, there is 24/7 customer service available to you. So if you go to right now, surfshark.com/outspoken, you get an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. What's more, Surfshark so confident they're the best VPN in the world that you can give it a try for a full 30 days. And if you're not entirely satisfied, you will get your money back. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. Just click on the link in the description box below. But now, back to the show.
We're out of bows! We are never out of bows. Last one. You thought it was all him.
And Connor, of course, Father Christmas is portrayed as a fat, lazy, old white man doing no work, of course.
Yeah, pale, male, and stale, as James cleverly would say. I think he's probably going to hand Mrs. Claus the divorce papers for next Christmas if she keeps treating him like that. Look, using this woman who, again, described the royal family as terribly white just shows how awfully out of touch most of these companies that are abiding by environmental, social, and governance ESG scores are, because they'll insult their customer base, predominantly in this country. That would be the heterosexual, white, indigenous population of England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, in order to get kickbacks from hedge funds who are obsessed with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And bear in mind, the global backlash to this shows how out of touch they are. Because when I watched that, and I'd been avoiding it as long as possible, because I don't watch terrestrial TV, Dan. I'm pretty much like everyone else my age. When I watched that online, begrudging the fact that I even gave them a view, I left a dislike on my way out the door. I was thinking, right, if you could assemble the most annoying possible cadre of woke, like, avatars, it would be that woman who constantly complains about a lack of racial representation to get herself jobs. When I suggested that on Times Radio, by the way, last year, in a very antagonistic interview with Henry Bonsu, he cut that part out because he's friends with her. So that's quite funny. And then a bunch of sort of
That's
gender...
the mainstream media summed up right there.
There you go. And a bunch of gender-bending transsexuals who are all dressed like villains in the capital city of the Hunger Games. And it's like, yeah, I know what screams Christmas to me. Denigrating Father Christmas and depicting a bunch of people who don't seem to have a healthy relationship with their own self-image, let alone a family that would give them presents, and a woman who decided to insult the entire population of the country and the beloved institution of the monarchy. Yeah, that'll do wonders for wanting to put people in your high street shops, which are seeing footfall free fall in the age of post-COVID. Great idea. Let's see how that works out for you.
But it's the arrogance of it, isn't it? It is the arrogance of a decision like that. And speaking of arrogance, at number 37 on our list of the worst of 2024, Keir Starmer, without any discussion with the British public, waves goodbye to the Chagos Islands. But Farage isn't happy about it.
Thank you. Foreign Secretary, it would appear that the potential judgment, next judgment of a spurious, rather political foreign court matters more than the issue of national sovereignty. But, and you boast that President Biden likes this deal. Now, the Speaker earlier on said that this House should not be affected by elections that take place in foreign countries. But I wonder, how confident are you, if the 47th President of the USA becomes Donald Trump, that he will approve of this deal, given the importance of our relationship with America? Yeah.
What did you make of this decision, Connor Tomlinson?
Oh, it's clearly just your old anti-white post-colonial theory, completely disregarding the strategic relevance of the islands. I mean, first of all, Mauritius have never actually owned the place. Second of all, Mauritius are on China's Belt and Road scheme. For those who don't know, the Chinese give loans, I think predatory loans, to developing countries around the world, bus out their workers to the place to surveil infrastructure projects. And when the nations default on the loans, the Chinese decide to claim those infrastructure projects as their own. I think it was in Uganda where they decided they own the airport going in and out of the country, for example, when we handed Barbados back over to self-governance rather than being part of the Commonwealth after the empire. The Chinese then immediately came in and snapped it up with investment. And it turns out the Chinese are heavily investing in Mauritius. And so this means if we were to give the Chagos Islands over to Mauritius, there would be a British military base that I think would still stay there. But there's nothing stopping the Chinese just swanning around it and having a good look for themselves. And that would be a strategic disaster if we're in a Cold War with them. I mean, I think that's observable just in the way they steal our intellectual property, that they unleashed COVID on us with zero consequences, that they decide to manipulate our media and buy off various politicians in the US and UK. And so I think Donald Trump will actually intervene in this, because what seems like a domestic matter with politicians who are obsessed with selling off parts of Britain's proud colonial and imperial legacy in order to appease the post-colonial types at the UN has actually become a geostrategic matter that is of interest to the global American empire. And so I think, look, I've had my criticisms of Farage for his softness on certain issues. I still want to see reform be very successful and be an insurrectionary political force against the Uniparty, and I cheer them on as a critical friend. I think this is what Farage would be very useful as the beachhead for the MAGA revolution in America affecting political change in the UK.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.